I'm gonna turn this vintage electronic game into a modern side table. I'm also gonna teach you how to create a simple jig that'll level up your skills. I love the 80s and I love making things out of wood, so why not combine them to make an awesome table? And big thanks to Squarespace for making this happen. I got these 3 pieces of cherry, which are rough on all sides. This should be more than what I need. This particular piece has some cool rotten stuff going on here. I'm gonna cut this off and save this for a future project. We'll find something cool to do with that. And then these other 2, I just wanna cut them in half first, makes it a little bit easier to push it through the planer. We got that cherry all milled up. Hopefully that's more than what we need. The legs are made out of 2 pieces, which are bigger than what my printer can print. So I'm gonna tape these guys together and we are going to make a router template. So I got this piece of 1/2-inch plywood and I'm gonna use some spray adhesive and attach my templates to it. I'm gonna split these guys up over on the bandsaw. So I have this sled that runs up against the fence, goes right up against the blade, and if I take the line on my pattern, I can just line the pattern up with the edge of the board. I've got some grip on top of here, so I don't need to clamp this down. If you make something like this, you wanna make sure your board is clamped down. So now I can just run this right through the blade, get a nice clean cut. I got the lines that I wanted super straight. The rest of them I'm just gonna cut out at the bandsaw and then sand down to the line. So the legs are gonna be joined like this, and I wanna do the best that I can to get straight grain here to straight grain here to give me a nice, strong joint. So on this board, I traced everything out, got the grain going straight against that one edge, and then I'm gonna do the best that I can with this one. Although it's not gonna be perfectly straight, at least it won't be all end grain. And then we will rough cut these over at the bandsaw, cutting as close to the line as I can without touching it. The closer you cut to the line on the bandsaw, the less work that you have to do with the router. The router is my least favorite tool. It is the tool of the devil. So we're going to double side tape our template to the piece of cherry. And then the bearing on this router bit right here, we're going to be able to make exact duplicates of all the leg pieces. I hate the router. Speaking of the devil. That was weird. And this is going to go in there just like that. Now we need to attach the foot to the leg. There are like 1,000 different ways to do this. You could use a domino, a biscuit joiner, a mortising jig, beadlock joinery, or a doweling jig. I haven't used my biscuit joiner in a long time. It's getting lonely. I'm gonna choose this for no other reason than it's lonely, I'm lonely, we're all lonely.
I'm lonely.
Come here, come here, come here. Let's fix this right now.
It hurts so good.
Yeah. Put a little gravy on there, put your biscuit in there, and then look at that. And it's a weird clamping situation, but I got enough straight grain that I'm not too worried about this, so we're just gonna tape this together. Don't let the big clamp industry run your life. So we can let those dry. So I went ahead and cut this little piece over at the table saw. That's going to get attached like that. I'm gonna have a dowel run in this way. And then for the legs that are gonna go this way, I'll have another dowel below that going this way. If you don't have a drill press, a little jig like this is super handy, which allows you to drill straight. This would have been a lot easier to do if I would have drilled the holes before cutting it out on the table saw. It is what it is. So.
You like it hard.
I put the dowels through that centerpiece first, and we're gonna clamp it in here. Put some glue in the glue hole. I cut some wedges that will allow me to put a clamp on there. I got this dowel sitting in that dog hole right there, so this will lay flat on the bench. And then now I need to drill a hole into this piece. Because I don't have enough hands to help me, I'm going to tape these wedges into place so I can get a clamp on here. I got this big old sheet of plywood. We're gonna cut it down just to make it a little bit more manageable to make our bottom shelf. I'm gonna complicate this a little bit. The base here, it's just gonna be a circle. I could cut out a circle on the bandsaw, it'll be fine. But I've never made a circle cutting jig. I got two guys here to help me figure out how to do this. So let's complicate it. So I have this piece of plywood. It's got a hole in there. I'm gonna double side tape this to the base of my router. Stick that through there. So to make this circle cutting jig, I need to put a nail through here, and that nail will be my pivot point. The bottom shelf, just a hair over 10 inches long. So we got the bit sticking out just a little bit, hitting the edge of this piece of plywood, and then I can measure over 5 inches, bring that line up here. We can pound our nail in right here. We're overcomplicating things. Woodworkers love overkill. I'm gonna use my drill guide to get that nail in there somewhat straight. Oh yeah, except, yeah.
I saw it coming and I was...
They got the nail sticking out the bottom there just a little bit to find where I want this to go. I've never done this before. Why'd I wait 10 years to do that? Oh, people are gonna give me shit for using this hammer. I got my side done. It turns out those tiny little dowels that we added for strength, not good enough, even if I was gonna glue this top on there. So I cut up some more solid cherry, glued it up, and then added these little corner pieces in right here. All of the grain is going the same way, so the movement is not fighting each other. Now it is beefy as heck. It's sturdy. I'm much happier with this. So before I glue on this little guy right here, we're gonna do a little shaping of the legs. We're gonna get rid of some of these hard edges and smooth it out. If you're thinking this would have been a lot easier before gluing this up, you're right. I know, I'm always saying chamfers are greater than roundovers, but in this particular case, I really like the big roundover with the hard straight lines. I think there's a cool little contrast going there. So I am really, really happy with that. So the next thing I want to do is attach this guy down there. And then we get to do the fun stuff up top. I'm just gonna put a little bit of wood glue in the center here to glue this on. I don't think I need any other reinforcement than that. And then I'm just gonna put some hot glue dollops on the edges here because it does have a little bit of a wobble. It's not perfectly flat. That'll take care of that. The edge banding seam will be hidden by the leg. I'm really, really happy with this. Yeah, all right. Now we get to work on the fun stuff, the top. We are going to have so much fun with the top of this table, but before we get to that, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Squarespace. So much of our lives happen online, and Squarespace allows you to have your own little personalized corner of the internet. Squarespace is fast and easy. Set up your website within hours and not days. I used to be a professional web developer. I know how long it can take to set up a website. With the Fluid Engine, you get unbreakable creativity. Everything is just drag and drop, and your website is going to look good on mobile, tablet, and desktop. They're adding new features all the time, and one of my favorites is the new asset library. You can make a blog, you can start a store, and you can even host your podcast with Squarespace. One of my favorite features about Squarespace is the mobile app. It allows me to take payments out and about, plus I can keep track of my inventory and just check out my analytics and see how things are going with my Squarespace site. So, visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/make something for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, Squarespace. It is time to get back to this tabletop, and we're gonna incorporate this Simon. This is gonna be fun and crazy and awesome. If you don't have a router or don't want to make the circle cutting jig for the router like we did earlier, you can always use your CNC. Of course, you could just cut this out on the bandsaw. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, or you can make the circle cutting jig. But as I'm setting this on there, this would look super cool if you cut a little lip on here, a little rabbit, and then put a little glass insert on there, because this circle pattern repeats down here, and that glass would allow you to see that. If I was just making a normal piece of furniture, that's what I would do. Today, we're not making a normal piece of furniture. This is where we get to have some fun and make this super unique. I found the Simon game at the Antique Mall. I used to have one of these back in 1982, and I want to build it right into the table somehow. We'll see, but possibly turn this into a drinking game. We're gonna make Simon for adults. There's a mode on there that allows you to have 4 players and each player can be eliminated. I don't wanna just have this sitting on the middle of the table. I want it to be built into the table. So the centerpiece needs to be made out of a 1/8 inch plywood. I don't have 1/8 inch cherry plywood, so I'm gonna make my own. This is about to get ridiculous. Cherry veneer. It's gonna go right on top of this. We throw this in the oven. We put this on top. Dinner's ready. Next thing I want to do is ride a little rabbet along the edge here for our game top to sit in there. Basically, got a rabbiting bit in the router. I didn't route the full depth because I want to sneak up on the perfect height so the piece that I lay in there lays nice and flush. So now I'm going to take a photo of the Simon, and I know the exact size of that pink piece of cardboard, bring it into Adobe Illustrator, fix the scale, and trace out all the elements. After many tests of cutting this out of paper to try to get all the measurements exactly right, I think we're ready to cut this out on the cherry veneered plywood. I only glued up one piece, so hopefully we get this in the first try. All right, everything is looking good. Snaps into place. Perfect height.
Oh, snap.
Ah, snap. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? So the spring mechanism on these buttons is pretty interesting. It's just these little clips. They hold them in, and they use that as the little spring. I cut out these guys over on the table saw, and they create a little lip and pivot point for the buttons. I think the best way is to bolt these in from the top and have the bolts become a feature. So those guys are gonna go in there. I think this is going to work. Look at that, sweet. And they look nice. They look nice on there. We're getting so close. I got everything mounted in there and they all work great. It's a delicate balance of being able to attach the top here without putting too much pressure that the buttons are engaged. So I cut off some little standoffs over at the table. We're gonna glue them into this piece and then we should be able to screw it from behind. We should from the bottom.
What?
Hello. The speaker that came with it stopped working. We unwired it and rewired it and it just didn't work. We tested it with another speaker and it worked. So something is wrong with the original one. So the replacement one that I have lying around is too big to fit inside the case. So we're going to mount it outside the case. So I think we're gonna get a little bit more bass out of Simon. Simon says more bass. We didn't do enough Simon Says jokes today. I'm just gonna hot glue this right on the bottom here. One other problem I discovered, this does not drop into the table anymore because of these supports. It's like I've solved one problem and then I create another. So I gotta chop these guys down. This should drop right into place. Get some edge banding on this guy. Now we gotta figure out how to attach the top to the base. I'm gonna use dowels, so I'm just gonna drill a hole in here. Gonna throw these little dowel centers on there so we can transfer the hole locations. And now we can just press down on here. Now we know where to drill our holes. And this is gonna go on just like this. They should all line up in theory. You kidding me, bro? You kidding me, bro? Ow, fuck. I freaking love how this came out. And if I don't want it to be a game table, I can insert a piece of glass in there like we talked about earlier. This is not the first time that I've done this. I've taken this classic tabletop game and made it into a beautiful piece of fine furniture, and you can watch that here.